professional game. And our arena was rocking. Our fans were really into it.
Big victory here for the slide of the UMass. Personal win for Chris Herren.
The guy came up and told me Chris tested positive.
And perhaps some of you may know, I have been battling a personal problem for the past 4 years.
Chris Herren was born September 27, 1975 in Fall River, Massachusetts, into a basketball family. His father, grandfather, and older brother had all played and excelled in the sport, and Herren had followed in their footsteps, excelling in his own path. Chris attended BMC Durfee High School in the town he grew up in, and let's just say that he was that dude. I mean, 2,073 career points, all-time scoring leader, All-American, Boston Gold, Player of the Year 3 years in a row, Gatorade Player of the Year. I mean, man, he's the best player they've ever had, and he really lit it up. So as you can expect, this was an absolutely unbelievably fun time for him, as it would be for anyone. Chris escalated his high school experience similar to many kids by partaking in recreational drug use. Smoking weed and drinking booze is a rather normal thing in most high schools, and with the trajectory that he was going, Chris was unstoppable, right? Well, it seemed to be so with the collegiate offers from the two most prestigious programs in the country in the University of Kentucky and Duke University, but turned down both of them to play for his hometown Boston College in what I would consider a rather noble decision. In what should be a great time of your life, Herren decided to turn it up a notch once again after coming home from practice one day to find his roommate with 2 girls. At the time, he walked in and saw lines of cocaine on the table, with 3 of them insisting that he gives it a try, since no harm will come from it, of course. 1 turned to 2, 2 turned to 3, and Herren was ripping blow on the regular. After only 1 game, the team caught him off guard with a random drug test, and Herren quickly had to pay for his choices. With clear-as-day talent, Coach Jerry Tarkanian from Fresno State decided to give him an offer to start over, work on his maturity, and continue his basketball career. The decision was a no-brainer, and Herren moved out west. Although cocaine was still a part of his life at this point, he still had the dog in him that drew the initial attention. Undoubtedly, his college career was extremely impressive. He put up over 15 a game for his first 2 years in Fresno, while being top 5 in assists in the nation in his third. But as much of a dog he was on the court, he was just as much of a dog off. The partying didn't stop, and after another positive drug test, a 20-year-old Chris Herren had to step up on national television and admit that he was an addict to the whole world, and was stepping away to complete a treatment program. He completed the program to an extent, although not taking the possibly life-saving information to heart, and was back out on the court. The lock of a first-round pick became a little less for sure, with teams skeptical on drafting a 22-year-old who had already developed a drug addiction, but the Denver Nuggets took a shot on him in the second round anyways. The coaches and owners made it clear that if he wanted to play NBA basketball, he has to be squeaky clean. Teammates Nick Van Exel and Antonio McDyess ensured of this, watching over his every move. And he had an alright season, averaging 3 and 3 in 13 minutes, but more importantly, he had built a lifestyle that allowed him to become the healthiest version of himself. But what he did not develop was the self-accountability that you need to sustain a sober lifestyle, and when the off-season came, his addiction became worse than it has ever been. After returning to Fall River and meeting up with his so-called friend, he was introduced to a prescription painkiller known as Oxycontin, and it was love at first sight. He was hooked out of the gate and fell back into the hole over the offseason just to come back to a new team next season with the news that he had been traded to the Boston Celtics. The hometown boy back in his hometown is a fun fairy tale story, but not when your demons are left back there to be recouped. Boston in need of a spark plug in the point guard position, Herren actually fit it pretty damn well, and what the X's and O's said was a match made in heaven, Chris had other motives. He referred to the night that coach Rick Pitino told him that he was being moved into the starting lineup. He couldn't take a second to appreciate the opportunity, since he was more worried on whether the plug would pull up to the arena before game time. 4 minutes before the first start of his career, he was standing on the corner outside of the arena in his Celtics warm-ups buying prescription pills. The charade went on for a few months before he was released from the team following a knee injury. The drug money needed to keep coming in, so he landed a new spot in Italy where he found the new love of his life, heroin, a cheaper alternative to his Oxycontin addiction. He eventually found himself in a jail cell after running over a woman blasted on drugs. With a pregnant wife and 2 kids at home, he was at rock bottom, spending all their cash on drugs and abusing to the point where he was waking up revived in an ambulance. He was just another junkie. Herren said suicide crossed his mind as a way to pull his family out of the mud that he was dragging them through. When his wife went into labor with their 3rd kid, he was in another one of his rehab programs, which he left to experience the birth of his child. Immediately after, with his 2 other kids in the car, he didn't bring them to bed, he didn't bring them dinner, he stopped to grab some booze. At this point, his wife was infuriated, telling him to go back to treatment or not to come back at all. After seeking counseling with the writing on the wall, he was told by his counselor to do the most courageous thing that he's ever done, calling his family and telling them they're better off without him and they'll never see him again. At this point, he realized that addiction had to be his number 1 priority. Without focusing on that, all other priorities were gone, and he disappeared from his family for nearly a year while he was rehabbing. Ever since then, he's managed to climb up the thread that he was dangling on out of the hole that he was in. Over 10 years of sobriety and traveling across the country speaking his story, it's safe to say that he successfully rebounded.